Morning. It's the wee hours. We're at beautiful Ski-Lac Lake, where the north or the upper Kenai meets the lake. Then it goes on down around the corner down to the lower Kenai. Came prepared. Try to get some breakfast. Tired as shit. Traveling on the water all day, man, wipes you out. But I'll give you guys a 360. It is just they don't make a descriptive word that truly captures what's going on. But I'm gonna see if there's some trout biting. Catch up to you in a minute. He's right there, young one.
I can hear him.
Hey, bear. Hey, bear.
Hey, bear.
He's a youngin'. Ooh, that's cub size damn near. Hold on, sweetie. Where's mama?
Ooh, that's scary.
Hey, bear.
Hey, bear. Yeah.
Ah, bear.
Over here, man. Yeah, that's outside.
Going up that back trail over there away from us.
Yeah, that's like that's the problem. Maybe 2 years.
Hey, greetings. This is Fred in Alaska. Thanks for joining me. I want to thank the person who wished to remain anonymous as far as funding Miguel's trip up here to Alaska. It was fun hanging out with him. Miguel was Sasquatch Theory. During our trip, I acquired some footage as well, but I decided since he was visiting and I can film Alaska anytime, I let him basically do a lot of filming. There was excitement and stuff. No hairy man stuff, but it was still intriguing. There's plenty of evidence to be found, but you'll see that on his upcoming video. What I wanted to share with you today, it comes from, we'll name him Samuel. Now, Samuel, back in 1969, he got a job at Red Devil Mine. Now, that's on the Kuskokwim River, just up around the bend from Sleep Mute. Now, Samuel, young guy at the time, he was hired on as basically a type of roustabout. He would run a skiff back and forth from the mine over to Sleep Mute, picking up supplies or whatever. And he enjoyed it, right? He enjoyed the job. Well, this one morning, he was driving the skiff. He was heading down to Sleep Mute. And when he looked off to his right-hand side, just before the bend of the river, he could have swore he saw a Saint Bernard. The coloring of it, he was like, someone lost their dog. So he cuts into the bank to see if the dog was accompanied by anybody. And as he gets in there, he breaks through the brush. And there's a little bit of an opening. It's about 75 feet. He sees movement, the same coloring, and he's calling out for this dog. Here, doggy, here, doggy. It stops in the brush, but it's not coming to him. So he goes, I got some jerky in the boat. I'm going to go grab it. So he runs over, grabs the jerky. When he comes back, he doesn't see it. So he goes closer to the brush. He's right up kind of in the alders and stuff, right? He's got this jerky. Here, puppy, here. No one's going to hurt you. No one's going to hurt you. And he's leaning in. He could see the hair and the movement just, because it was such a mangle of just, the alders, they just all, it's like spaghetti, And he said as he was sitting there, he's holding this piece of jerky out, and he's looking around, looking through, and he's like, come on, here you go, doggy, here you go. And as he's looking through, he notices eyes looking at him, and they weren't dog's eyes, right? Ashen gray face, like that Saint Bernard red, is as he called it, and flat nose, looked relatively young looking in the face, had a few wrinkles but not a lot. Eyes were pitch black, and according to what he said, very beady looking. And he's kind of in shock, like trying to recognize what the hell he's seeing, right? Because on the inside, he's like, what the hell is this? And this is all happening really fast. It's not, it's taking me far longer to explain it to you. So as he's holding out this piece of jerky, just as he was like, like, what the hell, recognizing it wasn't a dog, a hand snatches that jerky out of his hand. He stands up, drops the bag. He falls backwards, dropped his rifle, and this thing stands up in the brush. Now, he guesstimated at that time, it was early season, the alders, they're about 8 foot, and this thing was at least head and shoulders above that, looking down at him, and kind of pushed the brush, reached down, grabbed the rest of the bag of the jerky, and he's just on the ground looking up at this thing, and he's trying to like figure out exactly what he's looking at, right? Because up till that point, he had saw a blip of the Patty footage and whatnot from the Patterson Gimlin stuff at the beginning of some movie. It was a short newsreel blip or something, and he just didn't really pay attention to it. He thought it was an upcoming movie, right? So, being in shock, he jumps up. He grabs his rifle as this thing's just standing there looking at him, and he takes off running back to the skiff. He hops in and rips back to Sleep Moot. And when he gets there, he was there to meet up with a foreman he was picking up that was there waiting on him with some supplies and stuff. So he gets over there, the foreman gets on, he's helping load stuff up, and the foreman's like, you're pale as hell, are you okay? What's going on? And he didn't know what to say. Samuel said he was at a loss for words. He couldn't articulate what he was dealing with. He said he was hyper emotional. He just kind of started sobbing a little bit, like, I don't know. I just don't know. And the guy left him alone about it and said, hey, if you want to let me know, you can let me know. So on the way back, he tried to go to the farthest side of the river to avoid being near that section, right? But he knew it was on the same side of the river as camp, and he was nervous about that. He said when they got back to camp, the foreman talked to some other guys, and one of the guys he talked to happened to be one of Samuel's buddies, another roustabout, and he comes over and, was trying to engage him. Hey, are you all right? The foreman was saying you weren't looking too good, and you're pale, man. What's going on? So he pulls the guy's aside, kind of breaks down what happened, right? And the guy he pulled aside that he had thought was a friend of his started razzing him pretty hard, like, oh geez, man, you need to sleep more, you better hope they don't do drug testing, stuff like this, right? Which really it was a bad thing to do. But anyway, so a little while goes on and Samuel leaves that job. He leaves it, right, on good terms, but he had to leave. So skip forward. This mine was only open from 69 to 1971. He came back towards the latter part to do some, I believe they were closing something down. There was a process going on, and so he was back. Now, when he came back, he immediately thought of that encounter he had, right? And at the time, everyone was real quiet. Far different than when he was initially there. And one of the guys he recognized from his time there before, he called him over and he said, hey, why the solemn? Is because everyone's losing their job? And he was like, no, there was just some strange stuff a couple of those guys over there had dealt with down around the bend here. They went for a hike a little while back, and they won't talk about it or whatever, right? So I was like, oh, okay. Or not me, but Samuel says, oh, okay, goes over and talks to them. Sorry, I'm exhausted from the trip. But so he talks to these two guys, and they're like, hey, you know, we saw stuff too. We'll go with you. Let's go look around. So they take the boat on their off time, and they go back over to the spot. They go up in there, and as they get to that clearing, it's different now because it changes little bits every year, right? So Samuel and these two guys, they get back up in there, and one of the guys felt like they were wasting their time, right? They had cut across. He had showed them what happened to him. The guys said, hey, we saw him over here. And somewhere between where they saw him very near the encounter location for Samuel, they stopped somewhere in the middle. And one of the guys that was like, well, I can't be sure exactly what I saw, right? So he starts reeling and backtracking on what he saw. Well, he took off his backpack and leaned it up against by the brush as he was sitting down. Samuel and the other guy, were over in the clearing more in front of him, and he stands up and walks towards them to get in the conversation. And they're all three talking or whatever. And as they're doing so, Samuel said they heard some weird chirping. And so it drew their attention further up the mountain in front of them off to their right. So they're all looking over this way. Well, the guy who had set his backpack down right near the brush that walked over to him, turned around and said, well, hey, where'd you put my backpack? And they're all like, we've been right here in front of you. What are you talking about? Meanwhile, that whistling's still going on. So Samuel and the guy next to him, immediately they're making sure they got rounds in their rifles, right? And the guy was like, this ain't funny. What'd you guys do with my backpack? And the guy wasn't registering that, you know, no one took his pack. Well, at least not Samuel or the other guy. So he goes back over, and he's looking in the brush to see if maybe he pushed a little further, and when he stood up, maybe the brush closed over it or something. You know, he was trying to figure it out. He was struggling to figure it out. He gets back over to the brush, nothing. He ain't seeing nothing or anything like that. All of a sudden, he hears one of those strange whistles back behind the brush where he can't see, so he backs away. And as he's backing away, he gets to a point, and at this point, Samuel and the other guy, they see what he can't, and they raise their rifles. And Samuel said it appeared to be a much larger one standing there, just looking, just kind of like this inquisitive, kind of rocking its head back and forth like a dog being curious would, right? And the way the light was, it was silhouetted, so they couldn't make out any facial features, but they could tell it was big. The guy backing away from the brush gets a peek and gets startled, like, holy crap, you know, and turns around, starts running back towards his two buddies, where, you know, Samuel and the other guy. And as he does so, his backpack comes flying and lands past them into the opening of this clearing, right? He turns around and he looks again, and the loud whistles and screams and whoops started from a couple different directions. Freaked them all out. No one shot. They just retreated back to the skiff, right? Well, one of the guys that tied off the skiff, because Samuel was running the motor, when he pulled up to the bank, one of the guys tied an impossible knot. Like, he just wasn't well versed, right? It was a good knot, but not for what they needed. So when they were sitting there trying to figure out what to do and trying to untie the knot, they heard the whistles getting closer, and they heard movement in the brush, and Samuel just cut that line. You know, he just cut it. They dropped it in there. He fired up the outboard, and, you know, they took off and went to sleep mute. Now, when they were in sleep mute, they were kind of like, holy crap, you know, who do we tell about this? We got to report this. And Samuel said, all I got was ridicule last time I tried. So they went and tried to find one of the guys. It was a native guy that worked around the camp or whatever to ask his advice, but they couldn't find him anywhere, right? So they ended up handling what they had to handle and took off back to camp. And again, they skirted way around. So when they got back to camp, they went and talked to whoever was in charge at that time and was asking the guy, hey, what do we do about reporting some crazy stuff right down the way here, you know, less than a mile, maybe a mile away. And the guy told him, you don't report to no one. We're in the process of closing down. It is what it is, whatever. I don't even want to hear about it. You know, you guys will get probably reprimanded and drug tested or something if you guys, you know, continue on. And it was real weird for Samuel. He was like, well, where's our safety at in this? You know, he was real thrown off by the whole ordeal. But the rest of the stuff, just the rest of the time he was there, it wasn't much. They heard a couple whoops, but that was the extent of it. I want to thank Samuel for being patient. You know, it gets busy and it gets hard to get back to everybody. And also, again, thank you to the persons responsible for getting Miguel up here so he can, you know, cross something off the bucket list. You know, Miguel had a great time. Let's see, what else? I don't know. I'm exhausted. I know I'm probably forgetting something about it, but I'll catch up with y'all on the next one.